Community Collapse Disorder 2 by Hamzah Alameen. We have to look at this blight that has hit certain communities, especially African American and Latino community, as a systemic racism that's due to a fundamental attribution error. And if we look at this error, we will find that when we look at these communities, we tend to blame the people who lived in them for their existence, and we not look at the systemic pressures that created this blight. We need to look at what pressures were operative and that served to collapse the community. It's not that there weren't internal collapse disorder factors, as we spoke about in our last presentation, but the reality is that collapse happened externally with more violence and more frequency than from the internal aspect. Fundamental attribution error says that we have a tendency to explain and think about someone's behavior based upon internal factors such as their personality or disposition, and to underestimate the influence that external factors such as situational influences have on another person's behavior. So why are they acting like this in their communities? Why are these communities like zoos? What's going on? We want this explained from a individual aspect, not looking at the other dimensions that take place to make up the systemic reality of one's existence, one's family, one's mate, one's community engagement, one's social factors such as where we are economically. And what happens economically is certainly directly related to this. If we look at Detroit, this is what we see. We saw that 1 million jobs just left overnight, it looks like. And the blight that it caused was certainly due to economic pressures that were external from the individual. And we can't blame the people in these communities for that blight. We have to say to ourselves that we have socially divested from these communities and we don't care anymore, and we're not putting any money into them, because that's the reality. That's the external reality. And they're blaming the people who live there for the quality of life that they had caused the paranoia and the neuroticism that they had developed within the community eventually collapsed the community. And that paranoia and psychoticism and neuroticism isn't just due to the inhabitants, it's also due to the people who are in power outside, externally in the community around it, the suburbs and the businesses. These people were also contributors to this neuroticism. This is for sure, and this lack of hope, low expectation. Systemic disorders cause individualistic mental illness. The individual is traumatized by his environment. He can no longer understand his reality. He has no identity because of the neuroticism around him, and the psychoticism alienates him from himself, and he becomes an alienated self that is unable to externalize properly, especially those in the black community and Hispanic community, and the male personality is quite blunted, whereas oftentimes females, women are more stimulated and able to, they're stronger actually, and able to survive the trauma and cope with the trauma in better ways, because the dominant pressures have set up force fields against males that are less dense when it comes to women. Now, this has been an ongoing feature of our society here in America. But this is systemic that I really want to explain that causes disorganization similar to schizoaffective disorder in the individual. The community becomes disordered, unable to speak. It becomes deranged, just like a person affected with the mental illness of schizoaffective disorder. And we will see that we'll have these communities that are disorganized, gang-filled, drug-plagued. This is due to the war on drugs and other effects.
Not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. Only the unloved hate. The unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery. Fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke, it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man, nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!
We literally need to liberate ourselves. In every factor of life, we have been constrained like slaves again on the plantations in the South. Liberation begins with one mind, and that mind is activated, and then others adopt the vision of that person. This is how it starts. This is how it begins, with a supercharged change agent like Moses, who had the mind of revolution, who had the mind of change, because he wasn't subjected to the low expectation that slavery produces. God chose him to be removed from the mental condition of mental slavery. As a baby, he wasn't affected by it. He was instead moved into the Pharaoh's house, where he could be cultivated and have a mind of liberation, one which can come back and save the community, can save the people, can rebuild, retranslate, reorganize the community around liberation, recovery, restructuring, repolicing, creating culture, organize the poets, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, the activists, all those, the writers. It'll be a Renaissance period. This is enlightenment. This is development. And this is recovery. Communities recover like people recover. This is a solution segment where we understand that deranged people are like deranged communities, and they get well the same. You know, addiction is a family problem, and it is a community problem, and recovery is a family solution and a community solution. These communities that have been affected by the war on drugs, that carry the invisible wounds of war that aren't necessarily seen in the individuals, but we see it in the buildings. We see it in the cultural deficit that is surrounding them. We see that they're not civically engaging the same as they should and used to. We see a deficit in human and social capital, and we find this bankruptcy of culture unappealing, and something must be done about it. It is a systemic fact that unless there are change agents talking about the problem, inserting solutions, developing theories, and tying them to practices, that a community that has collapsed will stay collapsed, and their ruins will be like the ruins of the people of the ancient times, like the pyramids of ancient Egypt. They will exist only as artifacts of cultural anthropology that we look at and we say, how did this powerful nation become such a ruined one? Thank you very much.